Now, everything old is new again. America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
No, I am your father.
Fascinating.
Welcome to Everything Old is New Again. It's a pleasure to be with the rather confused David Cohen.
Yes, two of my favorite subjects we're talking about today.
Which is?
I already forgot what they are.
Well, I'll remind you, because this year there was a release of the brand new entertainment form in the way of the Last Jedi, the Star Wars
Star
franchise.
Wars, right. And
exactly. Star Trek. Exactly. Which?
Why did they have to? So you have Star Trek, right? When Star Wars, why did that have to start with Star? Well, of all the names, shouldn't there have been more of a distinction?
Don't know. All I do know is that was back in 1977. Yeah. Since then, it's been 41 years for that. Star Trek, it's been 52 years. It started out in 66. The question is, for these two franchises, they seem to be alive and well. Star Wars has 9 movies, 2 more on the way, 7 animated TV series, believe it or not, an animated movie that's in the works, video games, countless books, and in the Star Trek family, you've got 13 movies, 7 TV series, including 1 animated, where, are there more stories to tell after all of that, do you think?
Oh, God, I hope not. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking, of course.
We're going to see, because we're going to take a look at the Star Wars and Star Trek franchises and try to find out what is it about these two works of art that have kept us entertained. Have these two projects, or let's just put it this way, the newest ones, have they remained true to the original vision of the creators? Have they evolved? Is it better? Is it worse? I'm going to finish by saying this. What is going on here? And will these franchises continue to entertain us until we reach the 23rd century and they're no longer science fiction?
It's possible. But we also, thankfully, have a third voice with us today, too, just to spread the good cheer.
Yes,
right?
An original member of the Rogues Gallery himself, Dr. Richter. He's here to help us have the arguments that you love to have on this rather fascinating topic, pun intended. Dr. Richter, welcome aboard.
Well, thank you very much, Douglas and David, for that wonderful welcome. It's always great to be back here with you gentlemen discussing these deep topics.
And we're going to get into that, because let's take a look at Star Wars first, all right? What do you think is there behind the attraction and the staying power of Star Wars? I just want to interrupt for a moment just before you get there. And let's say,
welcome to my world, Rich.
Oh my gosh,
The Last Jedi took in $1 billion worldwide. The sequel, Solo, is on the horizon. There's another movie coming out next year to finish the current trilogy. Again, why? What do you attribute the popularity of Star Wars to? Dr. Richter.
Well, one, I think it's because it dates back with old guys like us. And, you have the new generation. You've got, like, moms and dads saying, gee, I remember when I was a kid. And also, all these movies, the special effects, the action, the violence, which seems to be what's most appealing these days.
Right. And well,
sadly.
So you're sort of implying that everything old is new again. Is that what you're trying to say?
I like that saying. That's catchy.
Let's listen to Joseph Campbell and see what he has to say about this.
Does a movie like Star Wars fill some of that need for the spiritual adventure for the hero?
Oh, it's perfect. It does the cycle perfectly. It's not simple morality play. It has to do with the powers of life and their inflection through the action of man.
David Cohen, who is Joseph Campbell?
No idea.
He is
there's a Joseph E. Campbell funeral home up where I live in Manhattan. Any connection there?
Not related, although it may have been buried in that facility or, with their help.
Oh, he's not with us
anymore. He's no longer with us, but he was a gentleman that reviewed and evaluated the myths of the world and what is some commonality between all the myths of different civilizations. And he came up with the idea of a hero's journey, where there's a journey of a young man or woman that is going through or does go through an adventure to then come out as a mature, better person. Is that a theme that you see in Star Wars? And if so, is it attractive even to your kids? Do they recognize that or this project as a hero's journey, Doctor?
I think they definitely revisited it when they rebooted with Episode 7. That whole concept, and that is, I'm familiar with that idea and how these stories are written, not just with Star Wars, but other stories as well. I'm going to say I don't know if they're staying true to it, though. They do.
That's a different story, correct. I agree. We're talking about the foundation of the original project was what we just spoke about, correct?
The foundation is there. Right. They're just redoing that same foundation.
And now it's good. Well, let's look at the original. We're looking at the original versions now, the original 3, let's say, in Star Wars, the foundation of it, why, that's certainly got to be some of the reason why it's popular now. Good versus evil. That's another very simple, message. It could be a Western, right? It could be anything else.
Absolutely. Star Wars has always... they've done the best job, I think, with that concept. The light side, the dark side of the Force, right. Good, evil,
and how you can go from one to the other, could happen. Make some difficult choices. There's also a message of fulfilling your destiny.
Good.
The heat has made you powerful. Now, fulfill your destiny. Take your father's place at my side.
There you go. That's the Emperor talking to Luke Skywalker.
Kirk. That wasn't Kirk.
No, that was.
We're still on Wars.
We're on
Star
Wars.
Okay.
Yes, this whole little section here. Doctor, fate versus free will. Do you find that might be the foundation that's now we're not talking about people saying, your kids saying, I'm watching this because there's a discussion of fate versus free will and the philosophical ramifications thereof, but it's there. Is it something that you feel is a commonality with the general public that may be something that inadvertently is the reason why this is so successful?
Fate versus free will.
Yeah, I mean...
No, I don't see it.
You don't see it?
I don't see it. In fact, if you're familiar with Star Wars, don't forget what Yoda himself said. The future is always in motion, so it's difficult to see.
Right.
So they literally state in the movies, there is no fate. You do have free will.
Well, that's the whole point.
You can change the future.
But when he is in the cave, when Luke Skywalker is in the cave in the second movie, and he... attacks the Darth Vader vision, and that mask is opened, and he sees himself there. That allegedly is his fate. He uses his free will to get off of that track and not be or become a part of the dark side. But you even hear the Emperor right there saying, it's your destiny. We all know you're supposed to go to the dark side. You can change your destiny, but your destiny is there. At least the plan is there.
The Emperor is he's evil. Never trust a liar. How can you go there?
I don't know. I don't know that he was lying.
I don't know if I agree with that. David, what's your deep insight into this?
What is your fate, David Cohen?
Fate versus free will. Can we go to the real world for a second?
Sure, why not?
Okay, I just want to make sure we can get out of this little bubble.
We can venture there.
The nerd bubble that you guys are in, I just want to step out of that for a second.
Yeah, that's offensive.
Why is it offensive? I'm a nerd about certain things. I'm all for that. It's just the Star Trek, Star Wars nerd bubble. How about
right?
That?
All right.
So
venture out of the bubble.
I'm in my own just complete nerd bubble. But
yes.
Fate versus free will. It's all about free will. I don't believe in fate at all. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know how that translates to what you guys are talking about.
Well, but do you feel that in Star Wars, I'm not getting a conclusion. I'm saying that topic is there. They're always talking about it's your destiny. Even in the new movies, they're talking about the destiny of these individuals. You are destined to do this, that, and the other. Now, will that happen? Is there a destiny that can't be changed? That's a different philosophical discussion, but they're bringing up that topic in every one of these movies.
Except in every one of these movies, it's always the evil that's saying, no, it's your destiny. And it's always the good that's saying, these are your possible paths. It's really your choice.
Same as like in the real world.
It's true. Well, listen, we talk about this topic all the time, whether you like it or not. What are you going to do? What are you going to do for a living with your kids, let's say? You have certain skills. Have you been given a skill set that in some ways could be seen as fate, that you're fated to be an athlete because you have that skill set or whatever it might be. Now, you choose to do that or not, that's a different story. But if you're fated to do that, or if you're at least given these skills to become a comedian or whatever it might be, then you've got to go ahead and go down that path. Otherwise, you're risking the what would you say, the ramification of not following what is your plan. Does any of that make any sense?
I hear where you're coming. I just don't agree with it. I don't think that's the theme of the movie.
Really?
I don't.
Oh,
I think it's all about free will and
overcoming
understanding
fate.
Exactly. Therefore,
but there is fate.
There is no destiny if your free will overcomes it.
Well, that of course, but there's a concept of destiny. That's what we're talking about. We'll be back right after everything old. My destiny to be stuck here with David Cohen and Richard Richter talking all things nerddom.
You're listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its continuing mission:
to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Welcome back to Everything Old is New Again. Douglas Viviani with David Cohen and our resident Rogues Gallery member, extraordinary fan of Star Trek and Star Wars and all things sci-fi, Dr. Richard Richter from Patchogue Family Dental.
Thank you very much, Douglas, David, again, for having me.
And still in his scrubs, I might add, which is quite impressive.
It's been a hard week.
And that's how important this discussion is to you. You came right from work.
I wouldn't miss it for the world, you know. I just drove out of that office at high speed, warp speed.
There you go. And we just listened to the typical or the standard introduction to Star Wars as presented by all 5 captains, original captains, and that then lends us to a discussion in this section of the show as to what is the attraction, the original themes of Star Trek, and do those lend to the credibility that's the reason why it's still popular to this day. We'll discuss that. I just want to give a little idea that CBS launched its online purchase service. They call it CBS. What do they call that?
Screw you.
Well, you're paying for all of their products, right? And they chose Star Trek Discovery to be its foundation, its cornerstone, to help build subscribers. Quentin Tarantino and J.J. Abrams are now collaborating behind the scenes for the next movie. Whether it happens or not, based on that collaboration, I don't know. But there is a next movie in the works. So again, this franchise is alive and well to this day. Let's take a look at why audience members still want to see stories couched in the Star Trek genre. Dr. Richter.
Yes, well, I think Star Trek always gave us a glimpse into the future of the best that mankind can be. It was a message of hope and unity, and that we were going to get away from all the petty foibles that seem to drown out.
And I think it had more time. There's something like 739 hours before Discovery started of Star Trek entertainment. So certainly there's many more hours, more time because of the TV series to dive into different theories, different philosophies, different methods of telling stories than Star Wars has. We're not saying Star Wars doesn't have its philosophies, but it's limited. They've got to stick to a couple, what we just spoke about. Here, I think some of the beauty of Star Trek is they can dive into a lot of different topics. And one of them was bigotry back in the day.
It is obvious to the most simple-minded that Lokai is of an inferior breed.
The obvious visual evidence, Commissioner, is that he is of the same breed as yourself.
Are you blind, Commander Spock? Well, look at me. Black on one side, white on the other. I am black on the right side.
I fail to see the significant difference.
Loki is white on the right side. All of his people are white on the right side.
What do you think, Dr. Richter? What did that message or that episode present to you?
One of my favorite episodes. You happen to just play a clip from. And again, you know, Star Trek had that way of getting to the root of what plagues society and showing us again a glimpse into a brighter future.
And in that one, the absurdity of being prejudiced against someone because of their skin color and different, you know, it's nonsense. And that was what was at least tried to be presented and prevail during that day.
Actually destroyed their planet when they finally made it. Yeah,
absolutely. All this prejudice. Let's look at an interesting look at fascism.
Took lesson from Earth history.
But why Nazi Germany? You studied history, you knew what the Nazis were?
Most efficient state Earth ever knew.
Quite true, Captain. A tiny country, beaten, bankrupt, defeated, rose in a few years to stand only one step away from global domination.
It was brutal, perverted, had to be destroyed at a terrible cost. Why that example?
Perhaps Gil felt that such a state, run benignly, could accomplish its efficiency without sadism.
You drew the wrong conclusion from history. The problem with the Nazis wasn't simply that their leaders were evil, psychotic men. They were. But the main problem, I think, was the leader principle.
What he's saying, Spock, is that a man holds that much power, even with the best intentions, just can't resist the urge to play God.
Thank you, Doctor. I was able to gather the meaning.
So they're able to discuss this topic with a smidge of humor, but a real interesting discussion, tearing away some of what, is learned in the textbooks. We know the basics, but how in the world did this civilization develop, and how did it become so strong and so evil? And that was a discussion kind of on the outskirts of this Star Trek episode, right?
Absolutely, agreed. It's a great episode, too.
And so they're hitting topics of talking about a horrible period of history, of course, and a horrible civilization, but they're trying to say, you know what, there was something, it worked in some way, why did it work? And by the way, the reason why it worked was the reason why it failed, because it was based upon this dictatorship, if you will, or one person, and one person leading anything is just not the way to go. No, yes, I mean...
Correct, absolutely. Well said. Couldn't have said it better myself.
I'm sorry, I took the words out of your mouth. Let's try this. I'll give you another little message.
If you will state your purpose and your objectives, perhaps we can arrive at a mutual understanding.
We turn our backs on confusion and seek the beginning.
What is your destination?
The planet Eden.
I know that's one of your least favorite episodes, but even in the least favorite episodes, they're trying to hit upon some message. Can we live in Eden on this existence, let's say? Or is that in heaven or somewhere else? Does that make sense?
Douglas, you did this to me deliberately.
Yes,
I'm already banging my head against the wall. I visualize it. That's a painful episode. Yes, every one of the Star Trek episodes had a moral to the story. I agree.
Well, but they'll talk about that, though. They're talking about, do you think there could be a utopia? David Cohen, do you think there could ever be a utopia? If the civilization we have today existed for the next 300 years, could there be an ultimate peace on the planet?
Yes.
He's so deep. Can I ask any more conversation about that, or go into the next clip?
Yeah, go to the next clip. Let me think more on it. That's a pretty loaded question.
Sure
it is. It's kind of hard to answer off the cuff.
It's the whole episode showed that they were misguided. That was the bottom line.
Misguided in the thought that there would be such a thing as Eden on this plane of existence.
And not only that, but what they did to get to this perfect Eden, they were destroying and committing acts of violence and evil.
They were right. So, do they even deserve to be in Eden if you're going to try to get there in a Machiavellian way? If that makes sense.
Exactly.
All right, I'm putting it in nice terms here. That I'm getting a lot out of the guests here. It's good to see. All right, well, let's try this one. Sitting at the edge of Pharrell.
No, Jim.
Deliberately stop me, Jim. I could have saved her. Do you know what you just did?
He knows, Doctor. He knows.
Episode where Kirk stops Dr. McCoy from saving the life of a person that he fell in love with back in the 1940s or 30s, I actually think it was. and did that because that individual would then become someone that would be so influential that her point of view would carry the day in the country of the United States and ultimately lose us World War II.
Fantastic episode, a classic. Again, you're showing Edith Keeler, her way was total peace. No strength, no arming, everything peace talks, and sometimes weakness is taken advantage of, which is a lesson even for us today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah. So just skip me.
So there.
That's yes.
No,
David, I'm sorry. Your deep insight into these Star Trek episodes it's welcome. Please.
But that couldn't have been more well said, and. The episode that was created 51 years ago got you to that point to this day. I think that it's interesting to talk about the fact that we're talking about a show that aired about 51 years ago. That episode was, and you're still evaluating it and presenting pearls of wisdom, based on that. I mean, come on,
there's concepts but there's concepts that are much older than that we're still talking about today.
No doubt, but we're talking
I'm not
about
saying Star Trek wasn't all that, but
But all I'm trying to do is lay the foundation that there's got to be some reason why 52 years later they're still doing this.
Right.
Right. And then we're going to get to, are they being honest with these original themes?
Can we also later talk about why your voice gets really loud at some...
He's passionate about
this.
I was just trying to keep you awake. What can I tell you?
Remember, the nerd bubble. This is the Star Trek bubble over here.
That's true.
Exactly.
Well, you have to yell because I'm sort of on the outside trying to listen in through that bubble.
I'm trying to yell through the bubble. The bubble boy can't hear me.
I can hear you fine.
All right, we'll come back. And when we come back, we're going to talk about a little detour here into the mirror universe of Star Trek. I think it may add some discussion and comparison between today's Star Trek and yesterday Star Trek from yesterday. I'll clip that out. Yesterday.
I like yesterday.
I like it. You could keep that in.
Yesterday.
It's funny.
Yesterday. We'll be back. And everything goes new again right after this.
And now
It sounds like you.
Shoot me now.
You sound like Rich singing.
God, I love this song.
Yay, brother.
Now, back to America's entertainment pop culture talk show. Everything old is new again, with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
My name is McCoy. I'm a doctor.
What am I, a doctor or a moon shuttle conductor? I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer. I'm a doctor, not an escalator.
I'm a doctor, not a mechanic. I'm a doctor, not an engineer. I'm a doctor, not a coal miner.
Keep saying that. Are you a doctor or aren't you?
I don't know.
There you go. Some of the humor of Star Trek, and I think that is something that lends itself to longevity as well. We're here with David Cohen, certainly Douglas Viviani, and the man himself, the Rogues Gallery, Dr. Richard Richter, and he's the doctor of Rogues Gallery. I'm trying to say something like that. Doesn't make any sense. Dr. Strange himself. Rich Richter, does that make any sense that humor may have lent a little bit to the longevity of Star Trek?
Yeah, the chemistry was amazing on that show. Even in the reboot, chemistry was amazing. I think that's what made it successful.
And I think you could say, we'll get to examining the new versions, but if you look at Last Jedi, there's a smidge of humor in there, too. They've tried for the first time in Star Wars. Am I wrong?
Humor for the first time? No.
I didn't see too much humor in prior.
Humor.
In
Always.
Star Wars?
Absolutely.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I don't remember much about it, but I remember there was some funny bits.
And chemistry, too, in the originals.
Okay.
I don't know if they have that kind of chemistry in the
We'll talk about that. I agree with you. But let's put this it was prevalent. It was very evident that they were trying to be humorous in The Last Jedi. Maybe to the detriment of the movie. I don't know. It didn't seem to be... that it worked all that much when he meets his sister and talks about the hair and good or whatever. It's a different style. Remember that? No. All right. Very good. Well,
do you remember that, David?
No, I did not see the movie.
All right, so you guys are really... No, I'm kidding. Well, let's take a look at the mirror universe in Star Trek, because it's a little bit of a sidetrack, but I think it will show you A good comparison.
Suddenly we're being edited. That's never happened before today. Suddenly the whole concept of, we're just going to edit that out.
You're going to get that right out. We never edit. We haven't edited yet, but I may edit you guys. You'll see.
Shoot, you're wasting time.
I shall not waste time with you. You're too inflexible, too disciplined once you've made up your mind. But Dr. McCoy has a plenitude of human weaknesses. Sentimental, soft. You may not tell me what I want to know, but he will.
You're running a big risk, Spock.
I have the phaser, Captain.
Dr. Richter, what is the mirror universe? Give us an idea right off the bat.
It's a look at what if, what if things were totally different? That's what makes it fascinating.
Okay, and it's going to another universe where your, let's say, other self made different choices and ended up in a different place than you are now.
Yeah, it could be like the evil Dr. Richter, right?
Right.
I thought we were with the evil Dr. Richter. No.
Let's see what they have. Oh, not Doctor. What Archer, Captain Archer has to say on the Enterprise.
I've been a soldier all my life. And I will not stand by and let these people destroy an empire that has endured for centuries. With the Defiant on our side, there will be nothing to stop us. The die is now cast. Long live the Empire!
All right, so in that dark universe, there was
You can't accuse these people of overacting, though.
No.
That's one thing I can say about this franchise.
They overact in the dark universe. They definitely do. Yes or no? Or let's say the mirror universe.
Depends.
So tell us what we were listening to. What's going on here in this mirror universe in Star Trek? Everything is negative. Everything's a real different world. Why? What are we talking about? Is there an analogy? What are they trying to tell us?
Well, what if? That's it. What if evil were to actually be the predominant, rule in that universe?
And all of us have a good and a bad
universe.
side. So we're appealing now to our negative side over good, primarily. Correct?
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
I wanted him to take me with him because whatever it's like where he's from, it's got to be better than this. There's got to be something better than this.
Not for you, Mr. O'Brien.
There you go. That's on the mirror universe in Deep Space Nine, where Kira was quite evil herself. So we're seeing that it now permeates almost all of these shows in Star Trek. And I don't. Was there any optimism? Is there anything positive coming out of any of this in these shows? What were we trying to see? Still nothing. Just the good versus evil.
That's it, Doug. I mean, let's face it. Again, it's a glimpse at what if. What if this were the predominant?
So if you're struggling
moral structure.
but if you're struggling for themes or philosophy or what have you, why is this so successful?
Because all the characters in all the different Star Trek series, they're good, they're moral, they're strong, they're ethical, and sometimes, the audience wants to see what if. That's why it's a successful pattern throughout all the series.
All right, let's take a look at Deep Space. I'm sorry, the original
what do you think,
series.
David?
No, I agree with that. Look, Hollywood's good for one thing. It's repeating past successes, whether it's a concept within a movie franchise or whether it's the movie franchise itself. So.
All right, let's see if there's any optimism in any of
It is time. In every revolution, there's one man with a vision.
Captain Kirk, I shall consider it.
Now, what is that? Kirk was whispering in the ear of the evil Spock, telling him how illogical this whole mirror universe is, correct?
That's correct, yes, Douglas.
And what was he telling him to do?
Douglas, he was telling him to invoke logic and see that this was a self-destructing path that the universe was based upon, and he should make a change because it's the logical way.
It's sort of an optimistic view of maybe Spock can do something to change this and get this universe on a different track. Correct?
And he did, supposedly.
In the books. Interesting. Now, the reason why I mentioned all of that, you can see I think there's a struggle in all of this, in that it's a novelty. Is it really presenting anything Star Trek-ish? Is it really true to its roots? But obviously the creators of Discovery, the brand new series, felt strongly enough that out of the 14 episodes that were just released, about 7 of them took place in the mirror universe. Let's just hear a glimpse of that.
It is time. It is time.
Oh boy, gotta get a better engineer. Here we go.
I do not appreciate having to walk my way across the quadrant to clean up your untended mess. When I give an order, I do not expect to be ignored. Don't you bow before your emperor?
There you go. So that's just showing that they now have revisited this concept again 50 years later, and it worked, I think. Doctor, have you seen these episodes?
I've seen them all, yes, Douglas.
And what do you think of their take on the Mirror Universe, which has just been finished?
Well, I liked it a lot, without, giving away the story. It was surprises, twists, turns. I did like that in the series.
Now, let's talk about that. Do you think Discovery, at least with respect to the Mirror Universe and maybe into Star Trek in general, carries forward any of these themes and concepts that we've been talking about Star Trek, the original basis of Star Trek? Have they revisited it, or is it just action Western type of stuff at this point?
No, I think it definitely captures some of those themes. It's revisiting some of them. Maybe not as well as it could, especially with a show called Discovery, which is still all about war.
Right.
But
and we'll get to that, but that's my objection to the show. I think the show is tremendous.
Yeah.
If you never saw any of the Star Treks, you would watch this and think it's tremendous. But if you saw the original and grew up with the original vision and the original things that we just spoke about, all the different concepts that can be talked about, you're limited in the CBS production of Discovery in that it's war against the Klingons in the beginning, and then it's war in the Mirror Universe.
Yes, by all means, yes.
Where are we going with
it? Is it really action-driven?
Yes.
The series?
Yeah.
And that's really kind of surprising. There's one episode I remember where they had to get these the source of their propulsion on a different planet, and they sort of touched upon visiting a new culture and a different planet and the way different organisms can live. You're familiar with the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, and they had another episode too where they were like holed up in a prison that was more like a zoo. I mean, they definitely are. They're exploring some of those original concepts, but it's still too heavy into that cowboy bang bang war shooting.
Like it was okay to start off with the Klingons and getting into all of that, and then go into something else, but they went right into another warlike situation. I'm curious to see what they're going to do in season 2. I think they did very well with it. I think it was a very good show. It's more reminded me of like a 24 or a modern show in that you don't know who's going to be killed off. You don't know who's good or evil.
Yeah.
There's a lot of thought going on there. It's not standard 7 characters. Know these 7 people will be on the show forever.
A lot of twists in the plot. A lot of plot twists. It was great.
Yeah, I give them credit. I thought that they did a real good job with it.
I do too.
But I do have to acknowledge, and I think that the Mirror Universe, to me, is very entertaining, but it doesn't add anything to Star Trek lore. It doesn't add anything to examining that condition of how did these people become evil. That's in all of these, and none of that has ever been discussed. What was the turn that was taken, I think the only thing, the closest thing was when they met the Vulcans for the first time, and Zefram Cochrane shoots the Vulcan instead of shaking his hand.
Yeah, I agree. But, the whole main character, her entire journey and story is really based upon, how your actions, affect your destiny, if you will.
Well, that's it. We go back to fate versus destiny, fate versus free will, I should say. Yes, we'll be back on Everything Old is New again. My fate is to be stuck in the studio for yet another session of discussing Star Trek versus Star Wars with David Cohen and Dr. Richard Richter. We'll be right back right after this.
This is Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
I accept your challenge, human. Your death will secure my place as absolute ruler of the Klingon Empire.
All right, this is Douglas Viviani here with David Cohen on Everything Old is New Again, and certainly we're revisiting and taking a look at the franchises of Star Wars and Star Trek with the doctor himself, the Rogues Gallery original, Dr. Richard Richter.
Thank
Welcome.
you very much. Thank you, Douglas. Thank you, David.
And hopefully we'll now get into a little bit of a discussion of the 2 most recent versions of Star Wars and Star Trek and see, are they carrying forward the messages, or at least the foundational principles that we just talked about of the original works from 40 and 50 years ago. First, let's take a look at Star Wars. And, I don't know, let's see what we've got going on here with Darth Vader and then Kylo Ren. Are they the same? Are they different? Is there any progression? Any?
You do not yet realize your importance. You have only begun to discover your power. Join me, and I will complete your training. With our combined strength, we can end this destructive conflict and bring order to the galaxy.
The map to Skywalker. We know you found it. And now you're going to give it to the First Order.
The First Order rose from the dark side. You did not.
I'll show you the dark side.
You may try, but you cannot deny the truth. That is your family.
You're so right.
There we go. Everything old is new again. Taking a look at Darth Vader and the new villain, his, I guess you could say his nephew, right?
No,
Kylo Ren.
Grandson.
I'm sorry, grandson. What am I thinking? Yes. Mm-hmm. So the destiny that was established for Luke Skywalker, that he was able to walk away from, has been now revisited, and Kylo Ren accepted that destiny, that fate, to go down the dark side, and is a dark side warrior at this point, correct?
That's correct, Douglas.
So there is a discussion there of a fate versus free will. Luke Skywalker uses free will to avoid the fate that his father and his nephew both went down.
Yes, he did.
All right, now, are they then the same? Is this the same exact topic? Could Kylo Ren just be Darth Vader? Did this concept evolve at all? Are the new movies basically just a reiteration of the same thing, same topics, same discussion that we had in the first three?
Yeah, again, just what David said earlier. Hollywood finds a formula of success and they repeat it. And that's pretty much what they've been doing with the new Star Wars films.
Yeah, so what's your view on it? Are you enjoying it? Is it lacking? What do you think?
I think it's lacking chemistry. It's extremely violent. Even the clip you played with Darth Vader, he had good still within him. He would not kill his son. In fact, he ended up actually turning back to the light side, saving his son.
Right.
Whereas Kylo Ren he killed his father in cold blood. He killed Han Solo. It's a much darker, more evil, it's like, where's the good, even in someone with evil? It's like very violent now.
Yeah, and they claim that he is torn. He claims he's torn. But then he kills his dad, and then the allegation is he's not torn. But in the latest movie, he's still torn. You know what I'm saying? Or at least he presents that face that he's torn.
Yeah, he would not kill his mother, Leia, on this ship. This is true. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's inconsistent with the characters. Either you're torn or you're not. Or what? He killed his dad, and that death had absolutely no meaning to the story because it didn't change him as a character. He's still torn?
In the story, it was supposed to cleanse him of anything good that was remaining.
Exactly, but it didn't. So it's a confusion.
He loves his mama.
But you know what I'm saying? It's a confusion. You're not consistent with your storyline.
No,
it's not. It's hard to follow that character then.
I think it's lacking chemistry also. I think it has some appeal, but they could have definitely done more. Even with the Luke Skywalker part in their latest movie, I think they dropped that ball
big time.
terribly.
We'll talk about that next week when we continue our discussion. But let's just take a look at the new incarnation of Star Trek a little bit more and ask the same question.
To all, I make this offer. Renounce Georgia. The Empire is dying in her hands, but you don't have to. Not today. Michael Burnham is not to be touched. She is integral to our future plans, a future where we together will make the Empire glorious again.
Well, that's Captain Lorca, the sixth captain in the Star Trek universe, let's say. I mean, Spock was a captain and so forth, but where our show is based upon. First of all, did you like that actor's portrayal?
Yes, I did. I thought he was an excellent part of the show. And again, some twists in there, right?
Yeah, lots of twists in that. And his character may or may not be back. We don't know because it's a mirror universe and what happens. But and what happened to his character in the mirror universe and what happened in the regular universe, we don't know. We don't want to lay it out too much. But the idea is, again, we're seeing Discovery, and we're seeing it being successful. And this world, we're seeing it as basically a war, whether it's against the mirror universe or it's against the Klingons. That's what we've seen for the season. Very well done, very well received. Has our civilization changed? Is there something changed that's now accepting that kind of Star Trek as opposed to the old Star Trek? Doctor?
Everything is changing in society today. We all know it. We know the increasing violence, the lack of spirituality, the millennial mindsets, much different than what we grew up with. And I think shows are trying to cater to that.
So now are shows leading the way, or are shows mirroring what's out there, David?
Oh, that's a $1 million question. I don't know.
That's why I present it to you.
It's if audiences are going to see it, they're being led by the studios, who are in turn being led by the audiences. So it's which came first, the chicken or the egg? When the audience stops paying to see the content, that's when they'll move on to something else.
Okay, I could see that. I also could see that it's so well done that people are just saying, well, I like it as a show, but it's not Star Trek where you've got or Star Wars, these themes.
But I think it's going to... My thinking is it's peaked. And I think now you're going to start to see less and less of it. Because I think... And I'm sorry, I'm going to lump Star Trek in with... and Star Wars in with a lot of the Marvel Universe movies where it's about superhero-like scenarios and characters and otherworldly adventures, and they're all very violent, and they're all there's a lot of conflict, and I think it's going to start to wane, because I think, like everything else, it cycles through, and you're going to see less of it
now,
which might bode well for you guys and maybe the next incarnation of Star Trek.
That's my point, is when you say see less of it, will we see no Avengers movie, or will we see the Avengers change to try to solve a problem more intellectually, more evaluating the enemy, so to speak, and what is their wants and desires, and how can we negotiate and so forth, as opposed, or learn from them, as opposed to just every time we're in a battle or every time we're in a conflict. In all three of what we just discussed, all three of the latest incarnations, it always ends up in a fight.
Right. I see it worsening, not getting better. I see like an end. You brought up Marvel Comics, David. Good example. You're going from Captain America type of themes and role models to Deadpool types of themes and role models. And in the Star Trek and Star Wars universe, it's just getting increasingly more dark and violent, and I don't see it reversing so fast.
Right. I mean, when you go straight to the violence, it means nothing. Godfather would not have worked if it was as violent as these movies are now. Because you need to know those characters, care about them, understand where they're coming from, why they're doing this, and what the struggle is internally before they pull that trigger. Does that make, what I mean?
Absolutely. Great example, right? Imagine how that would be redone, that whole
it would be just shoot them up like crazy. And I love all of these things, but I'm starting to get perturbed that, and we've talked about this before with conventions, and we've had many shows on it. If you want to take a look at it, go to everythingoldisnewagain.biz, everythingoldisnewagain.biz, you'll hear our old shows. I'm getting annoyed and I sound like, maybe I'm sounding like prima donna. I want to talk about other civilizations and how they're living and not living, and why are they different to us, and parables and maybe analogies to our civilization. Can we learn? I want these shows, better way to say it, I want them to lead. Star Trek in the 60s led with all of what we talked about and more. They led with trying to teach us, and teach is the wrong word because sometimes it's offensive. I don't want things to teach me, whatever. They were trying to at least present ideas that could change people's minds. Instead of saying, oh, everyone is a certain way, so I'm just going to mirror that in my movie. Does that make sense?
Yes, and teaching is exactly what they were doing, and it's not a bad word. They taught us morals, ethics, lessons in every episode. Every episode ended with understanding and hope. And, we're getting away from that. And I see you're getting very angry and perturbed, and that's like the dark side. You don't want to venture down that path.
It does perturb me. It does take me to the dark side, I'll be honest with you. We'll be back next week with Dr. Richter, continue our discussion. David Cohen, thank you very much. We'll be back on Everything Old is New Again, Star Trek, Star Wars. Are they carrying the day? And if so, why?